Voyage through the Bible. We're on a houseboat in southeast Arkansas in the 1920s. We have a new invention that's sweeping the area. We get a big battery, we have a radio, and now we are hearing from all over the world and places close by. Every so often we have to take the battery in and get it recharged. It's a new adventure in living for all of us on the houseboat. The overview of the Bible is not a story. We're talking about events in God's calendar. The quest of this overview is to explain to a doubting heart what a new heart looks like. We can have a new beginning. After all, we have many failures, but God has many promises. We're continuing the how-tos of spiritual gifts. And we're talking about the gift of helps. I'd like to discuss the gift of helps. Considered one of the lowliest gifts there is. I tell you one thing, there are many people with ministry of helps than there are of any other ministry. It affects more people. It affects more people's lives than any other ministry. It can cause blessings in people's lives more than any other ministry. It involves more people doing people to people and more than any other ministry. The gift of help is a broad base that works like this. If you're helping a person in the parking lot parking cars, you're a helper. If you're at the front door greeting people, you're a helper. If you're an usher, you're a helper. If you're doing coffee in a coffee shop, you're a helper. Who you're doing your helping with, you begin to look like them. In my mind, the gift of helps is a chameleon gift. You begin to reflect whoever you're with at that moment. So somebody with the gift of helps is with a teacher, they begin to look like a teacher. If they become an effective gift of helps, the Lord may require them and promote them into amazing situations. You can be a help to a pastor and you begin to look like a pastor. You may be required to have a gift of helps with an evangelist and you start looking like an evangelist. And if you're part of a prophetic team, you begin to look like a prophet. Paul called Timothy my son, my spiritual son. He was set on a mission. He reflected the mission. He was told to go to Ephesus, and he became the pastor there. He reflected that ministry. And later he was branded one of the early apostles of the church. He reflected that. The question is, did he have all of these ministries, and did he graduate into each one? Or did he have a ministry of helps and is reflecting all of these? It's a question I really can't answer. I'd like to talk about stretcher bearers. In Mark 2, 1 through 3, a few days later, when Jesus came back to Capernaum, the people heard that he had come home, and they gathered in such a large number that there was no room left, not even outside the door. And he preached the word to them, and some men came, bringing to him a paralyzed man, carrying the four of them. The four men carried the man who couldn't motivate himself. And the story is they couldn't get in to see Jesus because of the crowd. In a certain area of the roof, they went on the roof, and a certain area of the roof was porous. They broke through and dropped their friend right in front of Jesus. Without the stretcher bearers, the man would never have been delivered. It would suppose you could call the ministry that they had the ministry of helps. Around the time of the Civil War, in about 1840, there was a woman in Chicago that wanted to start a Sunday school. She had street urchins in mind. These street urchins weren't children necessarily. They could have been young adults who were streetwise. So she had the Sunday school classes, and she had one young man there who was a very rambunctious guy. He found the Lord. This man's name was Dwight L. Moody, one of the evangelists of the time. I want to pose a question to you. Who was the greatest, the teacher or Moody? My answer, the teacher. She had the gift of helps, and it reflected in Moody's life for the rest of his life. The ministry of helps is normally thought of as one of the insignificant gifts. I want to encourage you to think of a pyramid. The pyramid was built with a capstone on top. Sometimes during the process, there was a great foundation laid in the pyramid so it would not topple. It was built block by block, building until the capstone was placed and the whole thing fit. We have a pyramid of authority in any organization, but without the gift of helps, the pyramid crashes. A lot of people with the gift of helps are task-oriented, but many are not. Many are instead orientated toward other activities, and some of them quite spiritual within themselves.